Welcome to Hops and Monsters. This is a weekly discussion of all things nerd with your host. I'm Charlie Swanson.
I'm Ben Shackelford.
We're drinking a couple of beers, and we're going to talk about some of our favorite cult movies, comic books, all that good stuff.
And beer.
And this week, currently in my hand is a Dale's Pale Ale. You got to love that. I'm a big fan of this one. Comes in a 16-ounce can. That's a tall boy, if you're paying attention. Brewed and canned by Oscar Blues Brewery,
What does
Colorado.
it say around the top there?
It says something to the effect of Rocky Mountain Pale Ale. This is like probably the same spot where Coors Light is brewed, but this is actual beer instead of grain infused. A huge, voluminously hopped mother of a pale ale.
Nice.
I hope voluminously was correct. Voluminously? No, I think voluminously. Ben, what are you drinking today?
I'm drinking Eye of the Hawk Imperial Ale, made by Mendocino Brewing Company.
Right up the road.
From Ukiah.
Yeah.
Established in 1983.
I'm a big fan of Mendocino Brewing. I'm a big fan of the Red Tail Ale, and this is the Imperial Ale, nice and strong. So we're going to be loose-lipped. We're going to sink some ships today. We're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects. Ben, one of your favorite subjects, I hope.
Zombies.
The zombie. Specifically, George A. Romero's version of the zombies and how
father of all zombie films.
Yeah, how that really became the zombie that you think of. When I think of zombies, I think of Romero zombies. We're going to talk about a couple of offshoots, including maybe one of the best movies of the 80s, Return of the Living Dead. And we're going to do it all with a couple of beers. So, Ben, your favorite zombie movie is probably Night of the Living Dead, right? Just like mine.
It's a close second. I'd say, in order, it's Return of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead.
That's your favorite. So
yes.
we'll end with your favorite.
The color version of Night of the Living Dead, I much prefer over the black and white. I know that's probably going to go to blows over that.
You are ruffling feathers right off the bat here.
That's what I do.
We're 2:20 in, and you are ruffling feathers.
Yeah. No, I go for the confrontational opinion on things.
Let's do this. Okay, well, when you think of a zombie, give me like what you think. Like when I say zombie, you're thinking of the top 3 attributes of a zombie are.
They're dead.
They're dead, okay.
But they're walking around. They're animated.
They're animated, walking around.
They really seem to enjoy the taste of human flesh.
They really
Not
do.
Brains, flesh.
Flesh. Okay, so you're going flesh overall.
Yeah, well,
any flesh, human flesh.
Here's why. Because Romero makes a good point in the interviews I've read he says that zombies, first of all, they can't run, okay? So what's with all the spate of new zombie films where the zombies can chase you down the street?
Yeah. You ever heard of rigor mortis, people?
That's right.
It's a
you
thing.
Can't move. Plus, they're decomposing. Their ankles would break if they were running.
God.
They're lucky they can crawl after you.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't mean they're any less dangerous or any less hungry.
Imagine, and the fingernails would break off. It'd be like these little nubs trying to grab you with their hands.
On the subject of being hungry, every living organism on this planet exists by consuming another lower organism.
Okay.
We all consume flesh one way or another. Every form of life does it.
I'll feel
Bacteria feasts on flesh.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing.
Plants feast on the sun, a lower life form.
Well, if you call solar energy a life form.
We'll go fauna over flora. Yeah. When you're talking, exactly.
You know what I mean. So the other thing is Romero says, you know what? What's this thing with the brains? You know, he thinks Return of the Living Dead is a great film, but that's the first really zombies craving brains reference.
That is the brains movie. Yeah,
but
for sure.
Most zombies, when they're decomposing and all, they can't. How do they crack the skull to get to the brain? You can't. Even as a human, you can't. Your teeth will not get through the skull to the brain.
Be one of those
you need to crack it open like a walnut.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I love that this episode is going to just become the logic of zombies as a thing. Of course, a guy can't bite through someone's skull. That's ridiculous, right? But they must be really hungry to do that. But in Romero's zombies, so zombies, the word zombie, before Romero, before 1968, let's say, is when that came out. Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, yeah. Zombies meant a totally different thing. They weren't dead.
Yeah, zombies were the voodoo kind of slave. They were risen from the dead, but on purpose. I think that's kind of the big difference, is that someone purposefully, in White Zombie, where Bela Lugosi is this plantation owner, and He goes out and he raises. It's almost like grave robbing. He raises them from the dead, and they go work on his farm, and you have this sense of control over them. But
That's what they were.
Yeah.
It was a toxin made from the blowfish. You know, and the witch doctors would put it into a concoction and blow it up your nose, and it would make you seem like you had no control of yourself. You were very susceptible to suggestion.
Yeah, and people...
That was the definition of a zombie before 1968.
Yeah, people were actually thought that these were actual things, especially
they were scared of it
in the Caribbean, right? I mean, this was an actual thing. You said, yeah, zombies exist, and I know this guy who rose from the dead. I mean, that's kind of the mentality. Romero takes it into this different realm where I feel like he was... gosh, now I'm going to forget. I'm going to blank on it because we are a couple beers in. But he was watching these things where it was more about the social constructs, the effect of chaos, effect of fear, and zombies were the way to kind of be the avenue towards that.
Right. They were like, the first sound off to the apocalypse.
Exactly. And Night of the Living Dead comes out in 1968, super low budget. Basically, his friends are acting in it. He writes this script where the dead rise from their graves, and it's not really clear why, right, in the first one.
But it's clear that it takes place in a cemetery, in a mortuary. So there's going to be fresh dead bodies that haven't been buried yet, and that's why they're up. The ones being able to dig themselves out of the ground, that's a little bit far-fetched. But we'll get into that later with Return of the Living Dead.
Oh, I know. I love that part.
And why that's
I love
a great
that
movie.
part of that movie, though, where they're
it is
pounding on the coffins. Anyways, but yeah, I love Night of the Living Dead because it is one of those movies where... Well, let me tell you a story. Can I tell you a story?
Sure.
I have a personal story about Night of the Living Dead. I was a Catholic school boy growing up, very sheltered, was not allowed to see scary movies, was not allowed to see violent movies. Really, my parents were very not like the Hawk parents, but they were very like, no, we're not gonna. I couldn't watch The Simpsons for the first 5 years.
Really?
On. It was just too adult, too.
Because of the Brains reference?
No, because of, well, honestly, what happened was we watched the first Treehouse of Horror, and by the time all the Simpsons characters come out with the knives in the Bad Dream House, they're like, nope, we're turning this off.
Your parents thought you were satanic, right?
They thought I was easily susceptible to well, again, satanic stuff was big in the 80s.
Oh,
Let's give my parents that credit. They were inundated with
true.
Satanic culture, and they had this
That's what the headlines were all
about. They had this
about.
little adorable boy, me, growing up in that culture, and they
had to protect you.
Yeah, exactly. So I wasn't allowed to watch scary stuff. I'm 13. It's Halloween. I'm too old to go trick-or-treating, right? I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. So I convinced them to let me rent some quote-unquote scary movies because they were okay with me watching like the old movies, like the AMC, like the American Movie Classics, when they actually showed the old movies.
Bela Lugosi,
right?
All the classic monsters.
So I was well-versed in Creature from the Black Lagoon and Frankenstein and Dracula and all the old stuff. So we go to the video store. I get Vincent Price movies. I get, I don't know, some kind of monster, tarantula movie. And I get Night of the Living Dead.
Ooh.
And it's black and white. It's from the 60s. My mom probably had no idea what it was.
I'm sure she didn't. She'd probably never seen it.
Probably had no idea what it was.
If it's black and white, it's old. But there was a reason why it was filmed in black and white.
Yeah.
They could have filmed it in color.
They
chose to stick with black and white. He thought it made it much more visceral.
Yeah, my mom has no idea what that is.
I just prefer the colorized classic.
Well, let's get into that later. I'm telling a story, Jesus. Basically, what happened is I watched this movie when I'm 13, and it starts my obsession with zombies, horror movies, gore, the idea of that. And it really resonated with me, and it really shook me up. But in a good way, like it didn't tear. I didn't have nightmares because of it. My imagination kind of kicked in, and I think that's what happened with a lot of people watching this movie in the late 60s. They're having all these troubles. They're having civil rights stuff. They're having Vietnam War stuff. This movie comes out. It's visceral, like you're saying. It's energetic, and it has all these social implications.
It's very unconventional.
Yeah, and you can read it in multiple ways. You can read it in a race view. You can read it in a social class view. And everyone grabbed onto something about that movie. Mostly what I grabbed onto was the dead are rising from the grave. This is so cool. Oh, they're zombies. Ah, great. You know, and I just got into it on a pure enjoyment, pure entertainment level at that young age. You know, I didn't really know anything about
It didn't
issues.
start to wig you out a little bit when you saw people being eaten and thinking that could be you.
Well, exactly, but that's the thing. Yeah, you can imagine yourself in that realm. You can imagine, like, well, would I go to that house, or would I let this loudmouth tell me what to do, or would I hide in the basement? That's what's so great about it, right? And it activates that imagination. At least it does in me.
Oh, no, I totally agree. And the
Yeah.
same thing with Dawn of the Dead. We were talking about this earlier on the way over here, in fact. These movies are not really about zombies. They're about, and the Walking Dead TV show is the same way.
Yeah.
Anything could be going on. It could be they could be in the middle of a war, you know?
Right, virus outbreak.
Yeah.
Or any kind of apocalyptic scenario.
What it is, though, it's a group of people trapped in some area who normally would have nothing to do with each other, and they're forced to cooperate somehow. And this is what causes the drama.
Yes.
The zombies and the war and the violence and all that, that's just a side story to all this.
Sure.
And this is why these movies are so great, is the interaction between all these characters.
Yeah, you get these battles of ego, you know, more than, you know, you board up the windows and you keep the zombies out, but then you got the two main guys in Night of the Living Dead, Ben and I don't remember the white guy, the bald guy, right?
Right, the guy who's abusive to his wife.
Yeah, the jerk. And there's, again, we got to talk about that too. There's always the jerk in these movies, right? There's always the guy that does the exact wrong thing, or the guy where you go like, oh God, I would never do
The guy,
that. Why
yeah,
is this
when he
guy
gets
doing
it,
that?
you fully expect that was going to happen.
Yeah, it's like, good.
And there's that one guy who thinks he's going to get it like 5 times ago.
Yeah.
You know, and he survives every time. And then finally, on time number 6, he gets it. Finally gets bit.
About time, yeah.
When it's like you're cringing, you know, you're digging your nails into your flesh of your arm.
Just waiting for it to happen, right?
Yeah.
Just waiting for something to go bad. And but Night of the Living Dead, zombies rise. There's not really a reason why. I always feel like I need to like explain the plot. But if you haven't seen Night of the Living Dead, you know what it is. Zombies rise from the grave and they attack these people. They're in the house. This, you know, Ben, played by an African American guy named Dwayne Jones.
I believe that's his name. Yeah.
I believe that's his name. I don't have my computer in front of me today, but he kind of takes charge. Romero said that the script was originally written for a white guy, so he really wasn't even thinking of race or of that whole civil rights issue that is strong at that point. When he just was making a scary movie. It sounds like.
In fact, when Martin Luther King, when they got the news of the radio that he died, they were driving the print of the film over to the processing lab.
Man,
you know, so this happened before MLK.
That's true. Yeah, this is. But it's, yeah, I guess maybe it's more of just not a happy accident, but just the coincidence of these issues being so in the foremind of the culture. This movie coming out that is indirectly
with a strong black
talking
protagonist.
about these. Yeah, I mean, you just didn't see that in these movies. And so, of course, it becomes a cult sensation.
And
George
it becomes
A.
a
Romero.
cultural and racial issue because what's up with this black dude being the hero? And it's like, what does it matter that he's black?
Yeah, and spoiler alert, genuine spoiler alert, he gets killed at the end because people think he's a zombie in the house, or they just see a figure and they shoot him.
Practically,
And-
I mean, he gets shot, but practically lynched by a white mob.
Right.
You know, because they think he's a zombie.
The hick
Or
backwards.
the redneck posse that,
Right.
you know, groups together as what would happen if a real zombie outbreak happened. These would be the first people to get their guns and go out hunting.
And that really affected people. I mean, people saw that on screen. They got that message. It's not a subtle message, even if it's an indirect message. I mean, Romero is one of those directors where I don't think he's like trying to trick you or anything. He's laying out pretty clearly his message of the theme of this movie. And Night of the Living Dead, he was talking more about the breakdown of society, the breakdown of the family unit, how desperation turns you into this kind of animal that is willing to do whatever it takes, you know, to survive in the moment. He just happened to have an African American actor in the lead role, and all this race stuff gets put on it. But I mean, it's a perfect film for all of that. It's one of those movies where it is so brilliant because it says everything while it's telling a very simple story. So there you go.
It was like social commentary on the state of reality at that time in 1968.
Yeah. So you saw a colorized version. What are you talking about?
There's a colorized version
I'm
of
like,
it.
literally, what are you talking about? You saw like someone online.
I watched it the other
colorized
night
it,
in color. There's a version of it on YouTube.
but it was the original one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the thing about this movie is there was no copyright for when the movie came out.
Right.
Because everyone who made the film was really new to this. It was George Romero's first film. I think he did the first thing he'd done before that was a segment on Mr. Rogers.
Sure.
Not
yeah.
even kidding. I think that's what he did.
That sounds.
And-
I'm sure. I wouldn't.
So the
doubt
studio,
that for a second.
he was going to call it Night of the Flesh Eaters, but the studio changed it to Night of the Living Dead. Literally before it was the print was about to be processed, and didn't inform him or anyone else or the producers, and they've left the copyright off the film.
Oh, off the actual print of the film.
Yeah, so-
yeah. That'll do
So
it.
they
That'll
lost
do it.
out on a ton of money.
And that's why it's basically a public domain movie.
It is, and so it's like, so in 1990, Tom Savini, the
Savini, sure.
Savini, yeah,
The effects guy from Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead and all the.
he convinces
rest
Romero
of it.
to let him redirect a shot-for-shot remake, which I was unaware of until today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one kind of flew under the radar. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's exactly shot for shot, but it is basically the same movie.
It's so I've seen
very
the
much
first
the same
15
movie.
minutes of it, and it's like the brother in the beginning of the film, who's driving the car, and he gets out. He's got the driving gloves on, right, while they're standing at their mother's grave or whatever,
Right.
complaining about why they have to buy new flowers every year. He's wearing the same gloves. Like he
yeah.
stepped out of Night of the Living Dead
Sure.
into the remake 20 years later.
That's cool.
It's pretty crazy.
Well, I mean,
It's a lot more violent and graphic.
Yeah,
but-
Savini's definitely got the gore effects in high gear. But yeah, I mean, you can find Night of the Living Dead basically on any streaming or any YouTube, or it's a totally free movie at this point. So we should use it now.
It's heartbreaking to think that, I'm glad that Romero got the props for the movie, but he could have made more money.
Yeah. Let's move on. We got some other movies to talk about. Romero follows this up with a couple of personal projects, but everyone wants him to get back into zombies because that one movie was such a hit. So what about
10 years later?
7 to 10.
1978.
Dawn of the Dead is his sequel to Night of the Living Dead. And I got to just say real quick, I don't think I can think of a better trilogy based on title alone. Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. I love that. I love that it goes from night to day. I love that each time it increases in scope. I can't think of another example that
it's
would
great. Yeah, the
so
way that ties in.
perfectly exemplifies what's happening in each movie. Because Dawn of the Dead is really
Well, Night of the
chaos-
Living Dead is where it starts.
yeah, Night of the Living Dead
Starts
exactly.
at nighttime,
Starts
just
in
like
the
most
dead of
disasters
night
do.
in a small town in Pennsylvania, right? And then Dawn of the Dead is things start.
It's like you wake up one morning and finally you discover the world as you know it no longer exists.
Yes,
There's panic. There's chaos everywhere.
Yeah.
The news stations are reporting that the dead are coming back to life and
Yes.
eating people.
that's
And
insane.
society just breaks down and freaks out.
It
And
really
that's
does.
Like what would happen if we lost our power grid right now and all our cell phones went down. No one would know what to do.
I know.
We'd be running around like chickens with our heads cut
Can't
off.
listen to this podcast. What are you going to do? I love the opening of Dawn of the Dead because it
Takes place
feels
in a
so
newsroom.
real, and there's people talking over each other, and it's very like this. It's documentary style. Like it feels like it's really happening. It doesn't feel like a staged act. You get the panic. You get the sense of confusion, of incoherent. Like this information isn't adding up.
Yeah, they're trying to figure out how they're coming back to life and why they're eating people.
Yeah. And meanwhile, as they're doing this, like cities are shutting down. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, like the
You're
armed
losing
forces are
signals.
on full alert. It's martial law.
yeah,
It's just complete chaos.
it turns. So Dawn of
And
the
people
Dead.
wake up in the morning to this.
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead starts exactly the worst news you could hear, and you don't know what to do, and no one is giving you the information of what to do. I think that's what really the thing is. Like, you turn on your TV and you're just waiting for someone to tell you what to do.
Yep,
Right? It's
but
like,
it never comes.
and it just doesn't happen. People are
You're just like, okay,
scared.
we're really on our own. And
you see the opening sequence after the newsroom is telling you things are in trouble, like you're introduced to this chaos. Then you see a SWAT team that's going through, I believe it's Philadelphia, right? These these tenement buildings in Philadelphia, looking for the dead. I mean, they know that they can kill them. They know a shot through the head kills the body. They know that you have to put these things down. They know that if you're bitten by the zombie, you become a zombie. Like, so this whole mythology is in place now. And you follow 4 characters who escape the city. They get on a helicopter. It's 2 people from the newsroom, 2 people from the SWAT team, right? I think these characters are perfectly introduced, perfectly paired up. They work well together. I think that's the real strength of Dawn of the Dead is really in the
and
4
aside
main
from one character,
human characters.
they're just complete wrecks of human beings.
Yeah.
Just like in real life.
Well,
Just like all we would be.
They react flawed. They have flawed reactions to the great tragic thing that's happening in their life. I love in the beginning of Dawn of the Dead that they show the guys they show the guy's head getting blown off. They show all the gore. They show the zombie biting into his girlfriend, and they let you know, like, you are in for it, man. If this is how bad things are now, that's what I love about the movie. It's like things are so bad in the first 5 minutes that you are just left thinking, like, who knows what's going to happen next? Like, you really don't know. And, you know, the first time you watch it, you really don't know where they're going to end up. Like I said, these 4 people escape on a helicopter. They eventually land at a shopping mall, which, you know, in the late 70s was kind of the new thing. The shopping mall was just coming into prominence.
In fact, it was filmed at the first major indoor shopping mall that was ever built.
I love it.
The owners were personal friends of George Romero.
And again,
that's how he got that hookup.
In the Pittsburgh area, right?
I think it was in Ohio, but I'm not certain of that.
Well, I think a lot of the crew is from that original Pittsburgh crew, but I think Dawn of the Dead is the zombie movie. If you're gonna pick one to say, like, this is what zombies are,
definitively, yes, I would. It's my favorite zombie film.
Yeah,
for just straight horror, that's the one.
Yeah.
For horror mixed with a bit of comedy, it's going to be Return of the Living Dead for me.
Sure, and we'll get into it.
We'll get into
it. I know we want to get there. I think Dawn of the Dead's got a lot of funny moments in it too, though. I mean, it's not a horror comedy, but Dawn of the Dead
there are some
has a lot of levity.
Moments.
It has that moment where you're free to kind of shop alone in the store, like a kids movie almost.
Yeah, it would be like if Home Alone was filmed at a mall. What would you do?
Right. Mall alone.
What shopping spree would you go on?
Yeah, there were whole game shows made of that, weren't there? Weren't there, like, the shopping spree game show, back in the day? I mean, when I was a kid, the big thing was you could win a chance to do that through Toys R Us, basically, right?
20 minutes to run through the store.
20 minutes through
whatever you wanted.
What would I get? I'd probably get a bike. I'd have to get a big ticket item.
As a kid, you would spend hours obsessing over what aisle you would be down first.
Yes. And this movie is, you get to watch these people live that fantasy, briefly. And then I always love it when you get a little too comfortable, then they remind you, oh, by the way, there's thousands of zombies outside this mall trying to get in. They spell it out to you. Like I said, Romero isn't hiding anything. He's spelling out in dialogue, like, they come to the mall because that's what their brain wants them to do. That's what they remember.
Yeah, there's still some small spark of activity going on there. And that's their most primal instinct besides eating.
Right.
Where
consuming.
They go where they had the most pleasure
because
in life.
They consume food, but
they were consumers.
You consumer
in life and consumers
in the same way.
In death.
Yeah, exactly. You consume goods and materials, and you derive happiness from that the way you do from a full belly. It's
so the whole the whole situation message in the mall is sort of like an allegory to modern life.
It is. It really is, Ben.
That's. I mean, people. I mean, except now we have Amazon.com. That's.
Yeah, well, exactly. We don't even have to leave.
That's
the
our
house.
shopping mall.
Yeah, we don't need to leave the shopping mall. You guys got to go see Dawn of the Dead. Everyone who's listening to this has probably seen Dawn of the Dead. They know what we're talking about. It's gory. It's got the great scenes of the guts getting ripped open and the zombies eating people. It's got the great tension between the characters when you've got the one lady in the group doesn't want to be the den mother, but they leave her behind.
Ends up being the den mother by default just because she's in a group with 3 dudes.
Exactly. You've got all these power plays within the group.
And she's pregnant, of course. It doesn't...
Of course. You've got the Hare Krishna zombie. You've got the nurse zombie. I mean, you've got the classic zombies in this film. You've got great effects from Tom Savini.
Yeah, and then really the bad guys are the bikers at the end of the film that try to break into the mall.
Yeah, and then you've got the threat from the other people. It's like that's the greatest threat.
And
the zombies aren't really a threat.
You wonder why bikers, but here's why. Because in the event of an apocalypse, they're going to be the ones that survive because they're used to a harsh lifestyle already.
Yeah, they're willing to do what it takes.
Yeah,
I get the sense
they're not afraid to shoot anybody or
eye.
steal or rape and pillage and do whatever. That's
the American Viking.
Pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they are.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, they come about, and it's great. As I was watching this documentary, Tom Savini, obviously he's a biker in the film. He plays one of the bikers. And aside from doing all the effects, he did a lot of the stunts. So when you see them running by someone and someone kind of flies back, that's Savini. Like when one of the zombies gets like popped.
He does it all, man.
Yeah, he's crazy.
He was a cameraman in Vietnam, and he said that he made his zombies so realistic with the gore because of what he saw and what he filmed over there.
Yeah.
It gave him post-traumatic stress.
Which makes me wonder.
He had nightmares about it.
Yeah.
And he just tried to make it as realistic as what he saw. And that's why that movie was the first movie where, when I saw that as a kid, I was like, whoa, this is way too over the top. When you see that one zombie in the apartment building
so bloody.
Come back to life, and his wife or his girlfriend or somebody's like, trying to hug him.
Yeah.
She doesn't realize he's dead. He just bends down.
5 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, literally like 3 minutes in, bites a chunk out of her shoulder.
Just takes it right off. Oh, it's so gross.
And it looks like he really did it. You see the flesh being ripped off the bone. It's just...
It is rough.
My God.
Yeah, and the blood is so bright red.
Now, that's the only bone of contention I have with this movie is the blood just looks like ketchup.
A little too much?
It's too much.
Well,
and Ramiro admits so.
That makes me wonder.
He's not happy about it either.
That's what Savini saw, the biker who we got to talk
the one
about.
With the sombrero.
We got to talk about
his
sombrero.
Blood pressure.
Yeah,
after hauling a mannequin halfway across the floor.
Some people do some really weird stuff.
While he's being eaten by zombies.
Basically, what happens
has to do it.
is there's a blood pressure station where you stick your arm into the band, right? And this guy, twice in this movie,
it wasn't even the first time.
goes to the armband station to get his blood pressure checked. Dude, let it go. Let it go.
Leave the mannequin behind.
Leave it behind. You really don't need to know your blood pressure that bad.
Why the hell are you wearing a sombrero?
It's crazy. Oh, I can't believe it.
Do you think you're some Mexican revolutionary or something? What the...
The guy shooting at shadows and I just
there is a bit of comedy in the film.
Hindsight is 2020.
I mean,
when you're watching a zombie
full
film,
of tragedy
let's put it that way.
and comedy.
Yeah.
So the Greeks say.
So they say. So they say. I say we get another beer.
Let's do this.
We take a break. We're going to come back with more zombies, more Romero. We're going to talk about Return of the Living Dead, one of the 80s great underrated. I mean, I don't think it's underrated.
One of the best comedy films of all time.
It's super funny. Yeah, and it's super gory. This is Hops and Monsters. I'm Charlie Swanson.
I'm Ben Shackelford.
We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Hops and Monsters, a weekly discussion of nerdery without inhibition. I am Charlie Swanson, and over here is...
Ben Shackelford.
Hey, we're a couple of guys that we talk about cult films, we talk about comic books. Today we're talking about zombies, specifically George A. Romero zombies. And I am currently drinking Eye of the Hawk from Mendocino Brewing. It's an imperial ale. It's nice and strong. It's tasty. Ben, you've got...
I'm drinking the Dale's Pale Ale that you brought over.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one, too. That's the tall can.
Yep.
And this is our weekly reminder
it in a can.
If you are a brewing company and want to send us beer, we will gladly talk about you on our podcast.
We'll plug you on the show.
Yeah, it's perfect. So today so far we've gotten through the night of the living dead. We've survived the dawn of the dead. There's now a full day of the dead, wouldn't you say, Ben?
Yep. It's daytime now.
It's daytime, baby. It's 1985, I want to say. Romero returns to his zombie trilogy after doing movies like Creepshow, and he makes a super serious, militarized, you're in the bunker, everything's gone to shit. Day of the Dead's great. It's got some good effects. I don't really know what else to say about it, though. It's like
we try to train zombies.
Yeah, there is that. The scientist who's trying to train, what is it, Bub the zombie, or Bob? Bob. Engineer Ant throws in the Bob. Bob the zombie.
There isn't much about it that's memorable, unfortunately.
It's kind of slow. It's got a lot of characters screaming at each other the whole time. It's just more of that society's broken down and the bullies are the ones in charge and they eventually get their guts ripped out, right?
Yeah, as what happens. But
happens.
the problem with me in Day of the Dead is that I couldn't latch on to any of the characters.
Yeah.
The thing about Dawn of the Dead was that these characters were memorable in a way that made them seem human.
Yeah,
like
it made you root for them.
They made all the errors and mistakes that all of us would make in that kind of situation.
Sure.
Except for the one guy who avoids getting eaten like 5 times before finally, the 6th time, he finally doesn't get into the truck fast enough.
Yeah.
Gets bitten on the leg, and that's the end of him.
Frustrating. But you're rooting for these guys. You've got some momentum behind them. Yeah.
Yeah, but in Day of the Dead, I could not. None of these characters really had a personality, is my only criticism, really, the film. It looks great, just couldn't emotionally connect.
I feel you. So what comes after Day of the Dead then, I guess?
don't know. Is it Afternoon of the Dead?
Yeah. Tea Time of the Dead.
Brunch of the Dead, as Ant said.
Yeah. Well, I love the one you...
But we know what comes next.
Well, it's the Return.
What should have been the real sequel.
Yes.
To Dawn of the Dead.
The
Return of the Living Dead.
Of the Living Dead, yes.
Directed by Dan O'Bannon.
Directed by, the screenwriter behind Alien.
This was 1985.
He comes onto this film. So this movie is originally was written by John Russo, who co-wrote Night of the Living Dead with Romero, and he and Romero kind of split after that. Yeah, you're right, John Russo. He and Romero kind of split after that. Romero went Dawn of the Dead style. Russo wanted to take the original, just shambling zombie and really just expand on that idea in a lot of ways, in a lot of
they took it in way different directions. This movie is practically a comedy.
It is. It's very funny. It has very different zombies and
characters I can really get behind, like a group of punk rockers.
You gotta love those kids. Yeah, great kids. You've got the foreman of the factory, who's great, who was in Poltergeist. James Levin, I want to say. Man, I wish I had my computer in front of me. But great performances, great effects.
Great performances all around.
Great
Every
zombies.
Actor in there
let's see. Where do we...
Another strong male lead who happens to be a person of color.
Sure. James Karen.
Running theme.
James Karen, folks. You know James Karen if you've seen any movies. He's great. I know, it's kind of one of those, like, where do you start? So... medical supply company, there's a warehouse, there's a new kid who's working. James Karen is the foreman. They swap bullshit for a couple of minutes. Karen tells them about these eggs. They call them eggs that they've got in the basement.
They're called Easter eggs by the military.
Yeah, and but they specifically reference Night of the Living Dead as a movie.
Yes, as if it's done in real life.
It's this kind of weird self-aware, like, we know that there's these zombie movies, Night of the Living Dead, but did you know that movie's based on a real thing? I love that when a movie just does that. They just take this idea and they say, yeah, but what if it was real?
Yeah, it's almost filmed like reality TV.
It is, yeah. And, of course, before the credits roll, these two knuckleheads go down to the basement where these vaults of Easter eggs, like you said, are... They crack one open, all this poisonous gas comes out, and you've got your zombie apocalypse, and it's Return of the Living Dead. And it's a movie that is energetic, frenetic, disturbing at times, hilarious at times. I just watched it with you, last night, for the first time in maybe 20 years, honestly, and fell in love with it all over again.
It's so good.
Such a great watch. It's such a great experience.
There's not a wasted scene in that movie.
It reminds you of why you love movies.
Tarantino could have done it.
Why you sit and watch this crazy stuff, because it just is so entertaining.
It's the Pulp Fiction of zombie films.
It's just massively entertaining. It is just a good time. You get introduced to these punks who are out in the graveyard the night that all this is going down, and they are just the best, right? What's the one guy with all the chains? Suicide, right? That's his name.
He's the first one to die, of course.
Of course. But he's perfect. He's got the ear to nose chain. He's got all the
look.
leather.
He even makes a reference to it. It's like, what do you think this is? This isn't a costume.
Yeah.
This is a way of life.
This is a way of life. So many quotable lines in that movie. Yeah.
And hot naked babes.
How you got the naked girls dancing on the tombstones.
And he's like, what are you doing? Have some respect for the dead.
Have some respect for the dead. Yeah, for sure. I love it. So quotable. You're instantly on board with these kids. But you've got this other story where these guys have released this gas. A body comes to life. It escapes from its frozen locker, right? And
they have to chop up the body and then they burn it.
Well, they think they can just shoot it in the head, because they saw the movies. I love that scene where you say, it worked in the movies. I just love that. It's so self-referential. It's so aware of its silliness. And then the guy goes, the movies lied. And yeah, you can't kill these things with a headshot. It's not a normal zombie. Even when you chop it up, the arm is flopping around coming at you.
The body parts will come after you. You really got to destroy it so that there's nothing left to come after you.
Yeah. So what's their idea
So what
to
do they
destroy
do?
it? Yeah.
There's a funeral home across the way. They take it over there, light it up in the crematorium.
Simple.
Happens to be in a rainstorm.
Yes. So all the ashes get caught in the rain.
There's a handy cemetery nearby where the rain, the chemically induced rain falls down, drips down into the ground, and all the dead come climbing out of the ground.
Going. Yeah, you see what's happening here. I love the scene when, this torrential downpour has basically infected the entire graveyard. And I feel like it's the most true, graveyard popping up of zombies you've ever seen.
Plus the social message here is that we caused all this ourselves.
We did it. It was a typical army fuck-up, as they say in the movie.
The military-industrial complex at its best.
You put your trust in these guys. They don't know what they're doing. They have no idea where these things
We unleashed our own apocalypse.
And all of a sudden you've got all these zombies pounding on the tops of their coffins, digging through the dirt, rising out of the graves. It's one of those where it's like, now we're living here. 2016, we've seen 1 million zombie movies. And it's almost
many seasons of Walking Dead to count at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a great show, by the way.
You think it's a cliche.
Book.
Yeah, you think it's a cliche, but the Return of the Living Dead is really where a lot of the cliches start, right? It's where these cliches are born.
That's where the cliche of zombies needing brains
The brains aren't really a thing. You said, Romero
zombies just want to eat the flesh.
Yeah, they just
and the easiest flesh to access are the limbs.
Yeah, so
or the intestinal tract
have people
of the body.
Biting on arms and stuff, but this movie specifically goes after the brains.
Somehow they're able to just chomp right through that brain.
Right through the brain.
Right through the bone.
Exactly. You got to suspend your disbelief a little bit, I think, with
zombies.
It is
a comedy.
Right? Are we gonna? Yeah, we're not going to nitpick the zombie logistics here. That's what I love. It's like, oh, these are definitely realistic zombies because they do this. No, there's no such thing. So
yeah, the Romero rules with zombies are out the window.
They're out the window. They are, and you find that out pretty quickly, and that's what makes it so thrilling because you really don't know what's going to happen. You can't really predict. Oh, okay, this makes sense. They'll obviously do this because there are no rules at this point. It's a free-for-all. That's what I love about Return of the Living Dead. It's chaos magnified. And
it's an incredibly difficult movie to make, apparently, because the director, there's a great documentary on YouTube about the making of this film that you all should watch. It's got animation. I mean, someone actually took the time.
It's got some production
to do
value.
Cell shading over the characters and make them animated. And
it's a great retrospective. It's longer than the movie. That's how you know a documentary is good.
Yeah,
when it takes longer to have the documentary than the movie.
And the cast has a lot to say about what a jerk Dan O'Bannon was.
Yeah. Well, not a jerk, but difficult, right? He was
difficult to
not
deal
a
with.
people
It was his first film as a director.
Yeah,
and an excellent film. I mean, if you can chalk this film up to how great it is to who's directing, then all props to him.
It's a great film. He does a great job.
There's
but yeah, it
not
sounds
a single wasted scene in this film.
It sounds like it was a difficult shoot, and I think that's a theme that's going to come up a lot. Is that making movies are hard, and sometimes some people like Romero, obviously, everything I've
hits
heard,
or misses.
Yeah, right there. I mean, everyone says Romero was a sweetheart to get along with, and was great at making films. Dan O'Bannon, not a sweetheart, maybe, but still a great filmmaker. We got to talk about the Tar Man, maybe one of the most
iconic zombies ever.
Best zombies. There was a dude in a suit for that thing. This skeleton basically melting. He's the one that says brains. He's the first time you hear brains. And he has this very weird voice when he does it. He has that very, like, it's like modulated, like too low. Like, I don't know. There's no vocal cords on a skeleton. How does a guy say brains? But here he is. He's saying brains. And he's got the big eyes and the skull. It's really creepy, man. It kind of freaks me out. Like, I know it's kind of like, haha, it's fun, but kind of really creepy.
Anatomically, about how it would work,
yeah,
we don't really know. I mean, they actually make fun of this in the film when the two paramedics come in,
yeah,
and try to talk to the two guys who inhaled the poison gas.
Those guys are great. Yeah,
and they're like, no blood pressure, no pulse.
Yeah.
Your body temperature is 70 degrees. That's room temperature.
Room temperature.
Technically, you're dead, but you're talking to us, so we don't know what to think.
Yeah, exactly. And they're just slowly turning into zombies.
Well, they're already dead. Yeah, and they're about to.
That's messed up. But yeah, there's a lot of funny moments, but there's like, I don't know, when I was younger watching this movie, it kind of got to me a little bit. Like, it's funny that the zombie is able to reach into the ambulance after they eat the paramedics. Of course, they eat the paramedics.
And they get on the radio and ask them to send more paramedics.
Send more paramedics. But there's like that voice is just the deep voice just kind of creeps me out. And then, of course, the next paramedics show up. Their snacks, they get eaten. Some cops show up, they eat the cops. Like, you can't kill these guys. You shoot at them, nothing happens. They just keep running.
You gotta burn them.
And it was kind of the first running zombie.
And the United States government knows exactly what to do when you call the number on the can.
When they eventually call the number, let's just say it doesn't end well for Louisville, Kentucky, where this movie takes place.
Ground Zero.
And what happens from Ground Zero? All the smoke rises up.
More rain.
Into a rain, yes. Things don't end well in this film, but...
we just never learn, do we?
We really don't. You know, when are we going to get it
even
together?
Even burning something.
You got to learn from your
even
past.
The ashes can't come after you. It's still... The outcome is not entirely certain, as Tommy Lee Jones would say.
Where does Tommy Lee Jones say that? He's not in this movie.
It's he references that in No Country for Old Men.
I see. Yes.
In a battle between man and steer.
Mankind's oldest enemy, the steer. Well, what else do we need to talk about with Return of the Living Dead? Great soundtrack.
Oh, the best.
Great punk rock music from the 80s. I loved all the actors in it. I love everyone's performance in it. It's kind of silly. It's kind of funny.
It was like the opposite of Day of the Dead, where I couldn't relate to a single character in that film.
Right.
In Return of the Living Dead, I can relate to everyone in that film. Everyone in that film does such a good job.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was because Dan O'Bannon was either a really great director or just a real horrible people person that got this performance out of everyone. They really turned it up to 11. Everyone in that cast.
He does get the anguished performances out of these people. And, you know, the hordes of the zombies, I think, are much more effective in this movie than they are in the slow-walking movies like Dawn of the Dead, where, man, if you see 5 or 10 of these guys, you're done. You're done.
Yeah, this was the first zombie movie where the zombies could actually run at you.
Yeah, they could chase you down.
It broke zombie convention right there.
Yeah. And you know what, the weirdest, for me, honestly, watching it again last night, the weirdest part is when they have that half zombie like strapped to the table, right? And they're having a full-on conversation with the zombie. And it's a she's telling them that she can feel herself rotting and they hunger for brains because it's painful to be dead. And I'm like, are they trying to ration with this, like,
that's
rationalize
exactly it.
This zombie behavior? Like,
no, they get in depth anatomically as to why these things are after the brains.
It's like you never see that before. And now I think, again, it's like, it feels like a cliche, but this movie is the one that writes the book. I mean, Return of the Living Dead kind of...
As far as brains go.
As far as the brains, as far as the fast zombies that we all saw
it all started
in the
here.
remake of Dawn of the Dead. I mean, we don't even have time to get into that, but Zack Snyder's remake 2004 of Dawn of the Dead really is
not
the
a
one
bad
that...
movie either.
Not bad. I liked it. But the running, the fast, the feral zombie, that's a really new tactic.
I mean, really, the only thing in common with the two movies is that it takes place in a mall.
Yeah,
that's it.
Exactly. So, but Return of the Living Dead really changes the game, and I love it. And I kind of want to just like watch it again. Like I said, I saw it last night for the first time in a couple of decades. I can't wait to watch it again. I really just...
It's a must-own.
It's just so great. And I need to find it on Laserdisc. If anyone's got the Laserdisc of Return of the Living Dead, throw it over here. hopsandmonsters@gmail.com. I will gladly accept submissions in Laserdisc form. I've just loved talking about zombies. We're going to do more zombie talk, Ben, because there's got to be more.
Yeah.
There will be
no,
more
we've
to
just
talk
scratched
about.
the surface of really good zombie films here.
If you guys haven't seen any of these movies we're talking about, go find them, watch them. Night of the Living Dead is public domain, so you can get that anywhere. Dawn of the Dead.
You can even find it in color.
Yeah, you can even get it in color. Sacrilegious, but you can get it in color. But yeah, go see these movies. We love you. We love these zombies. I'm Charlie Swanson.
I'm Ben Shackelford.
This has been Hops and Monsters. I think we're going to call it a night here. We are happy to talk to you guys.
Brought to you by whatever beer we happen to be drinking this week.
Brought to you by Mendocino Brewing
and Dale's Pale Ale.
We're going to keep this going. So drop us a line, hopsandmonsters@gmail.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're going to make that a thing. We want to interact with you. Say hi. But for now, we're going to say bye. And we're going to say... Dude, give me your brains. Give me your brains impression.
Brains.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.